Captain Elena Vasquez floated in zero gravity as she checked the mining equipment one more time. The Kepler 442 system was quiet today, just like every other day for the past 3 years. Her ship, the Endeavour, looked like any other human mining vessel in the galaxy. Dull gray hull, basic engines, and enough drilling equipment to strip an asteroid clean in a few weeks. Elena had been working these outer systems for 15 years now. She knew every bolt, every wire, every maintenance schedule by heart. The work was hard, but it paid well enough to send money back to her family on Mars Colony. Her crew of 30 humans worked 12-hour shifts, pulling rare metals from the floating rocks that drifted through space like ancient graves. The galaxy had been good to humanity, she supposed. Not great, but good enough. 300 years ago, when the first alien ships had appeared over Earth, everyone had expected war or invasion. Instead, they got job offers. The Hegemony Council, the group that ruled most of the known galaxy, needed workers. Humans, it turned out, were perfect for the dangerous jobs that other species did not want to do. Humans lived short lives compared to most aliens. The Vorthak Empire soldiers lived for 300 years. The ethereal collective could transfer their minds to new bodies when their old ones wore out. Even the peaceful Zentari traders had lifespans that stretched for centuries. But humans? 80 years if they were lucky. Maybe 100 with good medical care. This made humans cheap labor. Why pay a Vorthak worker who might demand benefits for 2 centuries when you could hire a human who would be dead in a few decades? The math was simple, and the galaxy liked simple math. Elena pushed herself through the narrow corridor toward the bridge. The artificial gravity was turned off in this section to save power. Everything about human ships was designed to be cheap and efficient. No wasted energy, no extra comfort, no weapons that might make other species nervous. The bridge was small and cramped. 5 stations managed the entire ship: navigation, communications, life support, mining operations, and cargo management. Elena's second-in-command, Marcus Rivera, was already at his post checking the day's asteroid targets. "Morning, Captain," Marcus said without looking up from his screen. "We have 12 rocks on the list today. Good iron content in most of them. Should make quota by the end of the week." Elena nodded and settled into her command chair. The seat was worn and patched in 3 places, but it was comfortable enough. She had been sitting in this same chair for 8 years now, ever since she'd saved enough money to buy her own mining license from the Hegemony. The process had been humiliating, of course. She had to take tests to prove she could read star charts. She had to show that she understood basic safety procedures. She had to promise that she would not try to modify her ship's engines or add any unauthorized equipment. The Vorthak inspector had looked at her like she was a child playing with toys. But Elena had passed all the tests. She had signed all the forms. She had paid all the fees. And now she was the proud owner of one small, slow, boring mining ship that could barely make the jump between star systems without breaking down. It was better than working for someone else, she told herself. At least now she got to keep most of the profits instead of sending them up the chain to some alien corporation that saw humans as nothing more than useful animals. The communications console beeped softly. Elena frowned. They were not expecting any messages today. The Hegemony Council usually left mining ships alone as long as they filed their reports on time and did not cause trouble. "Marcus, check that signal," she said. Marcus touched a few controls and shook his head. "Strange. It's coming from everywhere, like it's being broadcast on every frequency at once." Elena felt something cold move through her stomach. Galaxy-wide broadcasts were rare. They usually meant war or plague or some other disaster that affected entire star systems. "Put it on the main screen." The view screen flickered to life. At first, Elena saw only static and garbled audio. Then the image cleared and she found herself looking at something that made no sense. Earth. She was looking at Earth from orbit, but something was wrong. The blue and green world she remembered from history books was covered in smoke. Massive ships hung in space around the planet like hungry vultures, ships that Elena recognized from military identification guides. Vorthak dreadnoughts. Dozens of them. The camera view shifted, showing cities on fire. Elena could see the familiar outline of New York, but half the city was gone, replaced by smoking craters that still glowed with weapon fire. The audio crackled and then cleared, revealing a calm, professional voice. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding Earth Defense Network. The Vorthak Empire has initiated unprovoked attacks against civilian population centers. Estimated casualties exceed 2 billion and rising. Elena gripped her chair arm so hard that her knuckles turned white. 2 billion people dead. Her mind could not process numbers that large. The image on the screen changed again. Now she was looking at what appeared to be archived footage, old film clips and digital records that showed humans doing things she had never seen before. Humans in military uniforms, carrying weapons that looked nothing like the simple tools she knew. Humans operating massive machines of war. Humans fighting each other with a viciousness that shocked her. The narration continued in that same calm voice. For 3 centuries, humanity has served the galaxy faithfully. We have mined your asteroids, built your stations, and maintained your equipment. We have been grateful for the opportunity to work among the stars. Elena watched footage of human soldiers storming beaches under enemy fire. She saw humans in tanks rolling across burning landscapes. She saw humans in aircraft, dropping bombs on cities below. The images were old from before first contact, but they showed a side of humanity that the galaxy had never seen. However, it appears that our peaceful nature has been misunderstood. The galaxy has forgotten what humans are capable of when threatened. The screen filled with technical diagrams, weapon specifications, ship blueprints, military strategies. Elena recognized some of the equipment from her own mining ship, but the diagrams showed modifications she had never imagined. Her simple drilling laser could apparently be converted into a weapon capable of cutting through battleship armor. We tried to leave our violent past behind when we joined the galactic community. We hid our weapons. We dismantled our armies. We became the workers and servants that the galaxy wanted us to be. More footage appeared. Humans working in space, building stations and mining asteroids. But the camera angles were different now, showing details that Elena had never noticed before. Support beams that looked suspiciously like weapon mounts, cargo containers that seemed designed to hide things, workers who moved with military precision even when doing civilian jobs. But we never forgot how to fight. We never forgot how to kill. And we never forgot that the universe is a dangerous place where the strong prey upon the weak. Admiral Chen appeared on screen again. But this time she was not on Earth. She was standing on the bridge of a warship, and Elena could see stars moving past the windows behind her. The ship was huge, larger than any vessel Elena had ever seen. The Vorthak Empire has made a fatal error. They have attacked Earth under the assumption that humanity lacks the will or ability to respond. They believe that 3 centuries of peaceful service have made us weak. The camera pulled back, revealing more of the bridge. Elena could see other officers working at control stations, and every single one of them was human. Not the tired, worn-down humans she saw every day in the mining colonies. These humans moved with confidence and purpose. They looked like soldiers. They are wrong. The transmission cut to external views of the ship Admiral Chen was on. Elena gasped. It was not just one ship. It was a fleet. Hundreds of vessels, all clearly built for war, all flying human flags. Where had they come from? How long had they been out there, hiding in the dark spaces between stars? Attention, species of the Hegemony Council, Admiral Chen continued. For 300 years you have known only the peaceful face of humanity. You have seen us as workers, servants, and laborers. You have never seen what we become when our families are threatened. The screen showed more fleets emerging from what appeared to be hidden bases scattered throughout the galaxy. Elena recognized some of the star systems. She had mined asteroids in those very locations, never knowing that human warships were hidden just a few light hours away. You are about to learn why humans are the only species to evolve on a death world. You are about to discover what happens when apex predators decide to stop pretending to be prey. Elena realized that her hands were shaking. The peaceful mining captain she had been just minutes ago felt like a lie she had been telling herself. Deep in her mind, something was awakening. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. Every human ship, every human station, every human colony has received this message. The pretense is over. The galaxy wanted workers, but what they got were warriors in disguise. The transmission showed technical specifications for Elena's own ship. Her boring, slow, simple mining vessel was apparently capable of things she had never imagined. The mining lasers could be reconfigured as weapons. The cargo holds contained hidden armor plating. Even the life support systems had military applications she was only now beginning to understand. Phase 1 protocols are now active. All human assets will reveal their true capabilities. All human personnel will remember their actual training. The galaxy wanted humanity to serve. Now humanity will teach the galaxy what service really means. Elena looked around her bridge with new eyes. Marcus was staring at his console, but his expression had changed. The tired resignation was gone, replaced by something harder, something more focused. She realized that he was not just checking asteroid positions, he was calculating firing solutions. "Elena," Marcus said quietly, "did you know that your command codes include military authorization levels?" She checked her personal data pad and found files she had never seen before. Military records, training certificates, weapon specifications. Her entire identity was apparently a cover story, and not a very deep one. How had she never noticed? The transmission continued, but Elena was no longer listening to the words. She was feeling something change inside her chest. The careful politeness she had always shown to alien officials. The grateful submission she had practiced when dealing with hegemony bureaucrats. The quiet acceptance of humanity's place at the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. All of it was falling away like an old skin that no longer fit. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. Elena turned to see Sarah Kim, her youngest crew member, looking at her with an expression she had never seen before. "I'm receiving authentication codes for military equipment I didn't know we had." Elena stood up from her chair. She felt different somehow, taller, more dangerous. The mining captain was still there, but something else was emerging. Something that had been hidden beneath years of peaceful service and careful obedience. "Marcus, what's our current location relative to the nearest Vorthak outpost?" Marcus consulted his screen with movements. That looked suddenly professional. "Military. 12 light hours to the garrison at Kepler 442c. Approximately 50 personnel and a small defense platform." Elena nodded. She understood now why she had been assigned to this system. Why her mining routes always kept her close to strategic locations. Why her crew was composed of exactly the right mix of specialists. They were not miners. They were a military unit that had been pretending to be miners for so long that they had almost forgotten the truth. "Sarah, open a channel to all human vessels in this system. Use the military frequencies that apparently exist on our communications array." Within minutes, Elena was looking at the faces of 12 other ship captains. Men and women she had known for years as fellow miners and cargo haulers. But they all looked different now. Harder, more alert. Like soldiers who had just woken up from a long sleep. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elena said, "it appears that we have work to do." The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. For 3 centuries, they had lived alongside humanity without ever asking why humans were the only species to survive on a planet where everything tried to kill them. They had assumed that peaceful cooperation meant humans were naturally peaceful. They were about to learn the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. Elena looked out at the stars and smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of something that had been hiding in the shadows for a very long time, waiting for permission to step into the light. The Vorthak Empire had just given humanity that permission. The universe was about to remember why apex predators were called apex predators. Elena stood in what she had always called the engineering bay, watching her ship transform. The walls were moving. Panels that had been solid for 8 years were sliding apart to reveal compartments she had never known existed. Inside those compartments were things that made her heart race: weapons, armor plating, military-grade sensor arrays, equipment that was definitely not approved for civilian mining vessels. "Captain," Marcus called from behind her, "you need to see this." She turned to find him standing next to what had always been the main power coupling for the mining lasers. Except now the coupling had opened up to reveal a control panel that looked nothing like civilian equipment. The readouts were all in military code, showing power levels that were far beyond anything her simple mining setup should have been capable of. "How much power can we actually generate?" she asked. Marcus ran his hands over controls he seemed to know how to use without any training. "About 40 times what we thought. The reactor core we've been running at minimum capacity. It's actually a military fusion plant rated for battlecruiser operations." Elena felt something click in her mind. Not a memory exactly, but more like a door opening to show her rooms she had forgotten existed. She walked to the main engineering console and placed her hand on a scanner that she had never noticed before. The scanner beeped softly, and suddenly the entire ship came alive around her. Status displays lit up throughout the bay, showing systems she had never known her ship possessed. Defensive screens, weapon targeting arrays, military-grade engines that had been deliberately limited to civilian speeds. Her little mining ship was apparently capable of outrunning most military vessels in the galaxy. "Sarah," Elena called over the intercom. "Please tell me our communications array is more than it appears to be." Sarah's voice came back excited and slightly scared. "Captain, I'm connected to a network I never knew existed. There are human ships everywhere. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're all waking up just like we are." Elena walked to the forward viewports and looked out at the asteroid field where they had been mining. 3 other human vessels were visible in the distance, and all of them were changing. Hull plating was shifting to reveal weapon mounts. Engine signatures were growing brighter as their real power plants came online. Running lights that had been white and peaceful were now red and purposeful. "How long?" Elena asked herself quietly. "How long have we been living a lie?" Marcus appeared beside her, carrying a datapad that showed technical specifications. "According to these files, every human who left Earth in the last 3 centuries has been part of this program. Every miner, every cargo hauler, every maintenance worker. We're all military personnel operating under deep cover." Elena took the pad and scrolled through pages of information. Her own service record showed 30 years of military training, including advanced combat tactics, starship operations, and what the files called species-specific warfare protocols. She had apparently graduated from the Solar Naval Academy with honors, specializing in covert operations and alien psychology. She had no memory of any of this. "Memory conditioning," Marcus explained, reading over her shoulder. "We all volunteered for it. The program required us to actually believe we were civilians. It was the only way to fool species with psychic abilities like the Ethereal Collective." More pieces fell into place. Elena remembered her job interviews with alien corporations. They had tested her, not just her technical skills, but her mental state. Psychic probes to make sure she was really just a harmless human looking for work. The conditioning had apparently been good enough to fool even telepathic aliens, but why? She asked. Why hide an entire military force of civilian workers? The answer came from Sarah over the intercom. "Captain, I'm receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Chen. She's explaining the strategic situation." Elena returned to the bridge, which now looked completely different. Control stations that had been simple and basic were revealing complex military interfaces. The main view screen was larger and clearer than before. Even the lighting had changed from soft civilian white to harsh military blue. Admiral Chen appeared on screen, and Elena could see that she was no longer on the command ship from the first broadcast. She was somewhere else now, surrounded by displays showing star maps and tactical information. "Human units throughout the galaxy," Chen began. "You are now receiving your actual mission briefings. For 300 years, humanity has been conducting the largest intelligence-gathering operation in galactic history." Elena sat in her command chair, which had also transformed. New controls had appeared on the armrests, giving her access to weapon systems and defensive screens. She had somehow always known how to use these controls, even though she had never seen them before. Every human worker has been a spy. Every human ship has been a mobile sensor platform. Every human colony has been a monitoring station. We have been watching the galaxy, learning its weaknesses and preparing for this moment. The screen showed star charts with thousands of marked locations. Human assets throughout hegemony space, all now revealing their true nature. Mining operations that had been gathering intelligence on military installations. Cargo haulers that had been mapping hyperspace routes. Maintenance workers who had been installing hidden monitoring equipment on alien vessels. The Vorthak Empire believes they are attacking a primitive species with limited military capabilities. They are correct that humanity is primitive by galactic standards. Our technology is inferior. Our ships are slower. Our weapons are less advanced. Elena frowned. If human technology was inferior, how are they supposed to fight the most powerful military force in the galaxy? However, Chen continued, the Vorthak have made one critical error. They have based their assessment of human military capabilities on their understanding of how civilized species conduct warfare. The screen showed footage of typical galactic conflicts, formal declarations of war, organized fleets meeting in open space, battles that followed established rules and protocols. Everything was orderly, predictable, and conducted according to treaties that had been signed by all major species. Humans are not civilized by galactic standards. We are the product of a death world where survival required constant adaptation and innovation. We do not fight fair. We do not follow rules, and we do not accept defeat. Elena felt something dark and satisfied stirring in her chest. She thought about all the times she had smiled politely, while alien officials treated her like a useful animal, all the forms she had filled out to prove she was worthy of basic rights, all the casual dismissals and condescending explanations of things she had understood better than her alien supervisors. Every human in space has been trained in asymmetric warfare tactics. We have studied our enemies for 3 centuries, learning their weaknesses and blind spots. We know how they think, how they fight, and how they die. Marcus was working at his station, and Elena could see that he was accessing military databases she had never known existed. Detailed psychological profiles of every major alien species, technical specifications for all hegemony military equipment, strategic assessments of every major installation and fleet deployment. The Vorthak military doctrine is based on overwhelming force and superior technology. They expect to face enemies who fight like they do. Open battles between organized fleets, respect for civilian targets, adherence to galactic warfare conventions. Elena studied the tactical information appearing on her screens. The Vorthak Empire controlled nearly half the galaxy through military conquest, but their fleets were spread thin across hundreds of systems. They relied on their reputation for invincibility to maintain order. Most species surrendered rather than face Vorthak battleships in open combat. They are about to discover that humans have no intention of fighting them according to galactic conventions. We learned warfare on a planet where the strong survived by being smarter, more vicious, and more adaptable than anything else. Sarah reported that she was receiving targeting data from across the sector. Every human vessel was sharing intelligence, creating a real-time picture of Vorthak positions and movements. Elena realized that they were not just individual ships pretending to be miners. They were nodes in a vast military network that spanned the entire galaxy. Phase 2 is now active. All human units will begin harassment operations against Vorthak assets. Priority targets include supply lines, communication networks, and isolated outposts. Avoid direct confrontation with main fleet elements until Phase 3 authorization. Elena looked at her tactical display. The nearest Vorthak outpost was lightly defended, probably because they had never expected civilian mining ships to pose any threat. 12 human vessels were already in position around the system, all of them now revealing military-grade sensor arrays and weapon systems. "Elena," Marcus said quietly, "I'm remembering things. Training exercises. Combat simulations. We've practiced this exact scenario hundreds of times." Elena nodded. The memories were coming back to her too, like water flowing back into a reservoir. She remembered learning how to disable Vorthak shield generators. She remembered practicing boarding actions against alien vessel layouts. She remembered being taught that mercy was a luxury humanity could not afford in a hostile galaxy. "Sarah, what's our communications range with the other human ships?" "Full tactical network is active, Captain. We're connected to every human vessel within 50 light years. Command and control protocols are operational." Elena stood and walked to the viewport. The asteroid field looked the same as it always had, but everything else was different. She was different. The careful politeness and grateful submission were gone, replaced by something colder and more focused. "Marcus, how long will it take to reach the Vorthak outpost?" 4 hours at our actual maximum speed," he replied. "Our engines have been running at about 15% capacity for the past 8 years. Elena smiled, and it was not the polite smile she had worn for 3 decades. It was the smile of something that had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Signal the fleet. We have our first target." Throughout the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on thousands of human vessels. Mining ships were revealing themselves as warships. Cargo haulers were deploying military equipment. Maintenance workers were accessing hidden weapon stockpiles. The peaceful, grateful humans that the galaxy had known for 3 centuries were disappearing, replaced by something far more dangerous. The Vorthak Empire had based their attack on the assumption that humans were weak, disorganized, and incapable of meaningful resistance. They were about to learn that they had been living alongside the greatest deception in galactic history. Elena looked out at the stars and felt a deep satisfaction. For 30 years she had pretended to be something she was not. She had played the role of a simple miner, grateful for the opportunity to serve alien masters. She had smiled and bowed and followed orders like a good little human. But she was not a miner. She was a soldier, and she was very good at her job. The galaxy had made the mistake of believing its own propaganda about human nature. They had confused choosing peace with being peaceful. They had mistaken strategic patience for weakness. They were about to learn the difference between a predator that chooses to hunt and a predator that has been caged for 300 years and finally allowed to remember what it was born to do. The Vorthak had attacked Earth believing they were crushing a defenseless species. Instead, they had just given humanity permission to stop pretending to be harmless. Elena gave the order to move out, and 12 human warships disguised as mining vessels began their approach to the first Vorthak target. They moved through space with the patient precision of hunters, and for the first time in 3 centuries they were exactly what they appeared to be. The galaxy was about to remember why humans were called apex predators. The Vorthak outpost at Kepler 442c had been built to intimidate, not to defend. Elena could see it through her ship's enhanced sensors as her fleet approached from the asteroid belt. The station was massive, shaped like a predator's claw reaching out from the planet's surface. It was designed to make smaller species feel afraid and helpless. But Elena was not feeling afraid. She was feeling something much more dangerous. Tactical analysis complete, Marcus reported from his station. 53 Vorthak personnel, standard defensive armament and overconfidence that's about to get them all killed. Elena studied the station's defensive patterns. The Vorthak had built their outpost according to standard military doctrine, designed to repel attacks from other organized militaries. They had shields that could stop battleship weapons. They had sensors that could detect fleets approaching from hyperspace. They had enough firepower to destroy anything smaller than a heavy cruiser. What they did not have was any defense against enemies that refused to fight fair. "Sarah, are you ready with the surprise?" Sarah's voice came back excited and slightly vicious. "Electronic warfare packages loaded and ready, Captain." "They won't know what hit them." Elena smiled. The electronic warfare package was something the Vorthak had never encountered before, because it was based on human computer viruses. For 3 centuries, humans had been maintaining Vorthak computer systems, learning their architecture and secretly building ways to destroy them from the inside. "All ships. This is Elena. Execute Plan Alpha in 3 minutes. Remember, we want information, not just destruction." The 12 human vessels moved into position around the outpost. To Vorthak sensors, they still looked like harmless mining ships going about their business in the asteroid field. The aliens had no idea that they were about to become the first casualties in humanity's revenge. Elena watched the countdown timer on her tactical display. 30 years of pretending to be a simple miner were about to end. 30 years of careful politeness and grateful submission were about to be replaced by something far more honest. 10 seconds, Marcus announced. Elena thought about Earth. 2 billion humans dead because the Vorthak thought they could attack a defenseless species without consequences. The aliens were about to learn that there was no such thing as a defenseless human. Only humans who had been pretending to be harmless. Execute. Sarah transmitted the electronic warfare package, and the Vorthak outpost died. Not physically, but electronically. Every computer system went offline simultaneously. Communication arrays went silent. Defensive screens collapsed. Weapon systems locked up. Even the life support systems began failing as human-designed viruses spread through every network. "Direct hit," Sarah reported with satisfaction. "Their computers are completely corrupted. They can't call for help, they can't fight back, and they can't even figure out what's happening to them." Elena watched as the 12 human ships revealed their true nature. Hull plating slid away to expose weapon mounts. Mining lasers reconfigured themselves into military-grade plasma cannons. The slow, harmless mining vessels became fast. Deadly warships in a matter of seconds. "All ships, begin boarding operations." The human fleet moved in perfect coordination, surrounding the helpless outpost like a pack of wolves taking down prey. Boarding shuttles launched from hidden bays carrying Marines who had been pretending to be mining technicians for years. Elena led the assault on the command center. She moved through the station's corridors with movements that felt natural, even though she had no memory of learning them. Her muscle memory knew how to breach airlocks, how to move in zero-gravity combat, and how to kill Vorthak soldiers efficiently and quietly. The station's defenders never had a chance. They were trained to fight other organized militaries in formal battles with rules and protocols. They were not prepared for humans who had learned warfare on a death world where survival required constant innovation and adaptation. Elena found the Vorthak station commander in his office. frantically trying to use a communication device that no longer worked. He was 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor plating and armed with weapons that could kill most species with a single shot. But he looked terrified as Elena entered the room. "You," he said in broken human language. "You are mining human. Why do you attack Vorthak Station?" Elena removed her helmet and looked at him with eyes that were no longer gentle or submissive. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Navy, and you made a mistake." The Vorthak commander's eyes widened. "Terran Navy? Humans have no navy. Humans are workers, servants." "Humans are whatever we choose to be," Elena replied. "For 3 centuries we chose to be your workers because it served our purposes. But you attacked Earth, you killed our families. Now we choose to be something else." She gestured to her Marines, who were securing the command center with professional efficiency. "Every human in space is military personnel. Every human ship is a warship. Every human colony is a military base. We have been watching you, learning your weaknesses and preparing for this day since we first met." The Vorthak commander tried to reach for his weapon, but Elena was faster. She moved with the fluid precision of someone who had trained for this moment her entire life, even if she had not remembered that training until an hour ago. "The Hegemony Council will not allow this," the commander gasped as Elena's Marines took him prisoner. "You are servants. You will be punished." "The Hegemony Council is about to learn that their servants have been planning their overthrow for 3 centuries, Elena replied, "and punishment goes both ways." Throughout the station, similar scenes were playing out. Vorthak soldiers who had never imagined being attacked by humans were being captured by humans who had been studying Vorthak military tactics for longer than most Vorthak had been alive. Elena made her way to the station's intelligence center, where Sarah was already working on extracting data from the surviving computer cores. The information they were finding was better than Elena had hoped. "Captain, look at this," Sarah said, displaying files on her portable screen. "Complete deployment schedules for the entire Vorthak 3rd Fleet. Communication codes. Supply schedules. Everything we need to hit them where it hurts," Elena nodded. This was not just about revenge, although revenge was certainly part of it. This was about using 3 centuries of gathered intelligence to dismantle the Vorthak Empire, piece by piece. "Marcus, signal the fleet. Package everything and transmit to the network. Every human unit in the galaxy needs this information." While her crew worked, Elena walked to the station's command center windows and looked out at the planet below. It was a beautiful world covered in forests and oceans. The Vorthak had conquered it 50 years ago, displacing the native species and turning it into a military outpost. Elena wondered how many other beautiful worlds the Vorthak had destroyed. How many species they had enslaved or eliminated. How many civilizations had died because the galaxy's most powerful military force believed that might made right. "Captain," Marcus called from his station. "We're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human units everywhere are revealing themselves. The hegemony is in complete chaos." Elena returned to her command station and called up the tactical display. What she saw made her smile with cold satisfaction. Thousands of red dots were appearing on the galactic map, each one representing a human unit that was dropping its civilian disguise and revealing its true military nature. The pattern was beautiful and terrifying. Human assets were positioned at every critical location in hegemony space. Supply routes, communication relays, military bases, government facilities. For 3 centuries, humans had been placing themselves exactly where they would be most effective when the time came to strike. "Sarah, what's happening at the major Vorthak installations?" Sarah's fingers danced over her controls, pulling up reports from across the galaxy. 17 supply depots have gone offline. Communication blackouts in 12 sectors. 3 major shipyards are reporting total systems failures. Elena felt a deep satisfaction as she realized the scale of what was happening. This was not a desperate counterattack by a dying species. This was the execution of a plan that had been 3 centuries in the making. Every human who had ever smiled politely at an alien official, every human who had ever bowed their head and accepted orders, every human who had ever been treated as a useful animal, had been part of this moment. "Marcus, what's our status on the prisoner interrogations?" "Very productive," Marcus replied with a grim smile. "Turns out that Vorthak soldiers are not trained to resist interrogation by species they consider inferior." "They're telling us everything." Elena nodded. The Vorthak military doctrine was based on intimidation and superior technology. They had never developed techniques for dealing with enemies who were smarter, more patient, and more vicious than they were. Captain, Sarah interrupted. I'm receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Chen. The main view screen activated to show Admiral Chen on the bridge of her command ship. Behind her, Elena could see tactical displays showing the entire galaxy, with thousands of human units coordinating their attacks in real time. All human forces, Chen began. Phase 3 is now authorized. The harassment phase is complete. We have successfully disrupted Vorthak communications and supply lines across 17 sectors. Intelligence gathered during the first 12 hours has exceeded all projections. Elena felt her heartbeat quicken. Phase 3 meant open warfare. No more hiding. No more pretending to be harmless civilians. However, the galaxy has still not learned the most important lesson. They still believe this is a conventional military conflict between organized forces. They still think they understand what humans are capable of. The screen showed footage from Earth's orbital defenses. Elena could see human warships that were clearly superior to anything the Vorthak had brought to the battle. Ships that had been built in hidden shipyards by humans who had been pretending to be simple miners and cargo haulers. The enemy expects us to fight like civilized species. They expect formal declarations of war, organized fleet actions, and respect for civilian targets. They expect us to follow the galactic warfare conventions that limit the scope and brutality of interstellar conflicts. Elena understood what was coming next, and she felt something dark and satisfied stirring in her chest. The Vorthak had made the mistake of targeting human civilians. Now they were about to learn what humans did to enemies who threatened their families. They are wrong, Chen continued. Humans do not fight according to galactic conventions because humans are not a civilized species by galactic standards. We are the product of a death world where survival required constant adaptation and absolute ruthlessness. Elena looked around at her crew. Marcus was checking weapon systems with professional efficiency. Sarah was coordinating with human intelligence networks across the galaxy. Every member of her crew had transformed from tired civilian workers into focused military professionals. Phase 3. Authorization includes permission to use any and all methods necessary to eliminate Vorthak military capabilities. There will be no restrictions on target selection. There will be no concern for collateral damage. There will be no mercy for enemies who showed no mercy to Earth. Elena felt the last of her civilian conditioning fall away. For 30 years she had been Elena Vasquez, mining ship captain. Polite, grateful, and careful to never cause trouble for her alien supervisors. But that Elena had been a lie. A mask worn for strategic purposes. The real Elena was Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Navy, trained in asymmetric warfare and species-specific combat tactics. And the real Elena was very good at her job. All human units will now demonstrate to the galaxy why humans are the only species to evolve on a death world. Show them what apex predators do to threats against their territory. Elena looked out at the stars and smiled. The galaxy had spent 3 centuries believing that humans were grateful servants who would never bite the hands that fed them. They were about to learn that they had been living with wolves who had been patiently waiting for permission to stop pretending to be sheep. The Vorthak Empire had attacked Earth expecting to face primitive resistance from a weak species. Instead, they had given humanity permission to reveal what they really were. The galaxy was about to remember why humans were called apex predators, and why apex predators were never as dangerous as when they were protecting their young. The Ethereal Collective tried to break Elena's mind on a Tuesday. She was leading her task force through the Rigel system, hunting down the scattered remains of the Vorthak Third Fleet. When the psychic attack began, it felt like ice water being poured directly into her brain, followed by alien thoughts, trying to overwrite her own consciousness. Elena laughed. The ethereal operative who had attempted the mental assault died, screaming as Elena's mind proved to be exactly the wrong kind of target for psychic manipulation. Human consciousness, it turned out, was too chaotic, too violent, and too stubbornly individual to be controlled by species that had evolved telepathic abilities on peaceful worlds. Sarah, did you record that? Elena asked as she watched the ethereal ship drift powerless through space, its crew dead or catatonic from the psychic feedback. Every second of it. Sarah replied with satisfaction. Command is going to love this data. Apparently, human mental patterns cause severe neurological damage to telepathic species that attempt hostile contact. Elena nodded. It was another piece of information to add to humanity's growing understanding of their enemies. For 3 centuries, humans had been the galaxy's servants. carefully studied and cataloged by superior species, who thought they understood what humans were capable of. They had been wrong about everything. The war had been raging for 6 months now, and the galaxy was finally beginning to understand the true nature of the enemy they had awakened. The Vorthak Empire, which had controlled half the known galaxy through military superiority, was being systematically destroyed by creatures they had dismissed as harmless servants. Elena's task force had grown from 12 mining ships to a full battle group of 60 vessels, all of them crewed by humans who had spent decades pretending to be something they were not. They moved through hegemony space like a plague, leaving behind a trail of shattered Vorthak installations and captured intelligence. But the real war was not being fought by Elena's ships. The real war was being fought by thousands of human units across the galaxy, all of them revealing capabilities that the hegemony had never imagined possible. "Marcus, bring up the strategic display," Elena ordered. The main view screen showed a tactical map of the entire galaxy. 3 months ago, it had been dominated by Vorthak Red, showing the massive territorial holdings of the galaxy's most powerful military force. Now, most of those red areas were either gone or flickering uncertainty as human forces swept through them like a wildfire. "Status report," Elena said. Marcus consulted, his displays with the professional efficiency of someone who had been trained for this his entire life. "Vorthak territorial control has decreased by 67%. Their main supply lines are completely severed. 17 of their major shipyards have been destroyed or captured. Their communication network is in complete collapse." Elena studied the tactical situation with satisfaction. The Vorthak military machine that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was falling apart like a house built on sand. Not because humanity had superior technology, but because humans fought wars differently than civilized species. The Vorthak expected formal fleet engagements between organized military forces. Instead, they got human infiltrators who had been embedded in their infrastructure for decades, systematically destroying critical systems from within. They expected to fight according to galactic warfare conventions that limited civilian casualties and protected non-combatants. Instead, they got humans who considered anyone who supported the Vorthak war effort to be a legitimate target. "Captain," Sarah interrupted, "I'm receiving a transmission from Admiral Chen. Priority 1 classification." Elena settled into her command chair as the Admiral appeared on screen. Chen looked older than she had 6 months ago, but there was a hard satisfaction in her eyes that Elena recognized. It was the look of someone who had been waiting their entire life for permission to stop being polite. "All human forces," Chen began. "I am pleased to report that the Vorthak home system has surrendered." Elena felt a surge of savage joy. The Vorthak home system was the center of their empire, protected by orbital defense platforms and the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Its surrender meant that the species that had ruled through fear and intimidation for centuries had finally met something they could not defeat. Vorthak Prime has agreed to complete demilitarization and the immediate withdrawal of all military forces from human space. They have also agreed to pay reparations for the attack on Earth and to submit to human oversight of their government. Elena smiled coldly. Human oversight. The species that had been servants 6 months ago were now the masters, and their former rulers were begging for mercy, but Chen was not finished. However, the Vorthak are only one component of the Hegemony Council. The other member species have not yet learned the lesson that the galaxy's new reality requires. They continue to believe that this conflict can be resolved through negotiation and compromise. Elena understood. The other species thought this was just another territorial war between competing powers. They believed that humans would be satisfied with defeating the Vorthak and claiming some territory in return. They had no idea that humanity's goals were far more comprehensive. Therefore, all human forces are authorized to begin enforcement operations against any species that continues to support the hegemony power structure. We will teach the galaxy that the age of human servitude is permanently over. The screen showed tactical displays from across human-controlled space. Elena could see the scope of what humanity had accomplished. Not just military victories, but the liberation of human workers who had been scattered across thousands of worlds. Mining colonies revealing themselves as military bases. Cargo haulers deploying hidden weapons. Maintenance workers taking control of the installations they had been maintaining for decades. "Elena," Chen continued, addressing her directly, Your task force is assigned to the Centauri Confederation. They have refused to acknowledge human sovereignty and continue to hold human workers in what they call protective custody. Show them the cost of that decision." Elena nodded. The Centauri Confederation was a group of species that had always presented themselves as peaceful traders and diplomats. They had never been as openly brutal as the Vorthak, but they had been equally condescending in their treatment of humanity. They were about to learn that humans had very long memories. Sarah set course for the Centauri system. Maximum speed. As Elena's battle group moved through hyperspace toward their new target, she reflected on how much the galaxy had changed in just 6 months. Species that had ruled for millennia were discovering that their subjects had never been as helpless as they had appeared. Workers who had seemed grateful for the opportunity to serve were revealing themselves as soldiers who had been gathering intelligence and waiting for orders. But the most important change was not tactical or strategic. It was psychological. For 3 centuries, humanity had been careful to present themselves as grateful, submissive, and harmless. They had smiled politely when insulted, worked diligently for alien masters, and never complained about their treatment. That facade was gone forever. Elena had seen the change in her own crew. Marcus, who had once been deferential to alien port authorities, now spoke to them like the conquered subjects they had become. Sarah, who had once filed maintenance reports with alien bureaucrats, now transmitted surrender demands with cheerful brutality. The careful politeness that had defined human interactions with aliens for 3 centuries had been replaced by something far more honest. Humans no longer pretended to be grateful for the opportunity to serve. They made it clear that service was a privilege that could be withdrawn at any time. "Captain," Marcus reported, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from Vorthak installations throughout this sector. They're abandoning their positions rather than face human forces." Elena was not surprised. Word of humanity's capabilities had spread throughout the galaxy by now. Species that had once seen humans as harmless workers now knew that every human was a potential soldier. Every human ship was a potential warship. And every human colony was a potential military base. The psychological impact was enormous. For centuries, the galaxy had been comfortable with human presence because humans seemed weak and grateful. Now that same ubiquitous human presence had become a source of terror. How many human workers were actually soldiers in disguise? How many human maintenance crews were actually intelligence operatives? How many human cargo haulers were actually military transport ships? The answer, as the galaxy was learning, was all of them. "Captain, we're approaching the Centauri system," Sarah announced. "I'm detecting multiple alien vessels in orbit around the primary world. They appear to be requesting permission to communicate." Elena leaned back in her command chair and smiled. The Centauri Confederation wanted to talk. They probably believed they could negotiate some kind of arrangement that would preserve their authority while making minor concessions to human demands. They were about to learn that humans were no longer interested in negotiating from a position of weakness. "Open a channel," Elena ordered. The main view screen filled with the image of an alien Elena recognized from her years of pretending to be a civilian worker. Ambassador Zenthi of the Centauri Confederation, a 4-armed creature with skin like polished metal and eyes like black jewels. Elena had met him several times at trade conferences, where he had spoken to her with the condescending kindness reserved for useful animals. "Captain Vasquez," Zenthi said in his musical voice, "I am pleased to see that you have survived the recent troubles. The Confederation wishes to discuss the current situation and find a peaceful resolution to these unfortunate conflicts." Elena stared at him for several long seconds before speaking. When she finally replied, her voice was flat and emotionless. "Ambassador, you are holding 17,000 human workers in what you call protective custody. Release them immediately or face the consequences." Zenthi's expression did not change, but Elena could see tension in his body language. "Captain, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. The human workers in Confederation space are not prisoners. They are valued employees who are being protected from the violence that has consumed other regions of the galaxy." "They are soldiers," Elena replied, "and they are needed for military operations. You have 1 hour to release them and withdraw all Confederation forces from systems with human populations. After that, you will be treated as hostile combatants." Zenthi's composure finally cracked. "Captain, you cannot be serious. The Confederation has always maintained friendly relations with humanity. We have provided employment and protection for your people for over 2 centuries. Surely we can reach some accommodation that recognizes our mutual interests." Elena stood up from her command chair and walked closer to the view screen. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 3 centuries of accumulated rage. "Ambassador, for 200 years you have employed humans as cheap labor because you believed we were too weak and stupid to demand better treatment. You have spoken to us like children, paid us starvation wages, and reminded us constantly that we should be grateful for your generosity." Xenthi's forearms shifted nervously. "Captain, if there have been misunderstandings about compensation or treatment, I am certain we can address those issues through proper diplomatic channels." "There will be no diplomatic channels," Elena replied. "There will be no negotiations. There will be no accommodations. The galaxy wanted human servants, and now the galaxy will learn what it means to be served by humans." She signaled to Sarah, who cut the transmission. Elena looked out at the Centauri fleet waiting in orbit around their capital world. They were arranged in a defensive formation, probably hoping to intimidate her into accepting some kind of compromise. They had no idea what they were really facing. Marcus signaled the fleet. "Battle stations. It's time to teach the Confederation the new rules of galactic politics." Elena watched as her 60 ships deployed into attack formation. They moved with the precision of a military force that had been training for this moment for decades. Even if most of them had not remembered that training until 6 months ago, the Centauri Confederation was about to become the latest species to learn that the galaxy had a new apex predator, and that apex predators did not negotiate with their prey. 2 years after the broadcast that changed everything, Elena stood in the rebuilt city of New Geneva on Earth, watching alien diplomats queue outside the newly constructed Terran Protectorate headquarters. They waited in orderly lines, clutching documents that begged for mercy, trade agreements, or simply permission to continue existing. How things had changed. The building itself was a statement of humanity's new position in the galaxy. It rose from the crater that had once been the old United Nations complex, destroyed by Vorthak orbital bombardment. But where the UN building had been designed to welcome all species as equals, this new structure was built to intimidate. Black metal and sharp angles that made it clear who was in charge now. Elena wore the uniform of a Terran Protectorate admiral, 5 stars gleaming on her shoulders. She had come a long way from pretending to be a simple mining ship captain. Her task force had become a full fleet, and her fleet had become the enforcement arm of humanity's new galactic order. "Admiral," her aide approached with a datapad, "the Centauri delegation is requesting a private audience to discuss their latest tribute payment." Elena smiled without humor. The Centauri Confederation, once proud trading partners who had employed humans as cheap labor, now competed with dozens of other species to prove their loyalty to their new human masters. Their latest tribute included advanced technology, strategic resources, and a formal apology for 2 centuries of treating humans as inferior beings. "Tell them they can wait like everyone else," Elena replied. "The age of special treatment for alien species is over." Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office, Elena could see the construction crews rebuilding Earth's devastated cities. But these were not the desperate reconstruction efforts of a defeated population. These were the planned improvements of a species that had won the greatest war in galactic history. The workers were not all human. Elena could see Vorthak soldiers in prison uniforms, laboring under human supervision to repair the damage their empire had caused. Ethereal collective members, their psychic abilities suppressed by human neural dampeners, serving as manual laborers for the first time in their species' history. Even proud Centauri diplomats could be seen carrying supplies and equipment, learning what it meant to serve others. Elena's personal communicator chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Chen, now Supreme Commander of all human forces. Her image appeared in holographic form, speaking from the bridge of the massive command ship that orbited Earth like a metallic moon. "Elena, how are our new friends adjusting to the changes?" Elena looked down at the alien diplomats still waiting in line outside the building. "About as well as expected. The Rigelians submitted their formal application for protectorate status this morning. The Tau Ceti Republic has offered to dismantle their remaining military forces in exchange for favorable trade terms. Even the Andromedans are sending representatives." Chen nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy learns quickly when the lesson is taught properly. What's the status of the remaining holdout systems? Elena consulted her datapad. 17 independent systems still refuse to acknowledge human authority. They're attempting to form some kind of resistance alliance. Let them try, Chen replied. It will make the final lesson even more educational for the other species. Elena understood. The few remaining systems that refused to submit to human authority would serve as examples of what happened to species that challenged the new galactic order. Humanity had learned the importance of making examples during their centuries of servitude. Now they were applying those lessons from a position of strength. What about the integration of human workers from the outer colonies? Elena asked. Better than projected, Chen reported. Turns out that most of our people are relieved to stop pretending to be grateful servants. The psychological profiles show significantly improved mental health across all demographics, once they were allowed to reveal their true capabilities. Elena was not surprised. For 3 centuries, every human in space had been living a lie, pretending to be weaker and less intelligent than they actually were. The psychological strain of that deception had been enormous, but it had been necessary to position humanity for this moment. Now, human workers throughout the galaxy were revealing the true extent of their abilities. Mining operations were becoming military bases. Cargo routes were becoming supply lines for human expansion. Maintenance facilities were becoming shipyards for an ever-growing human fleet. The galaxy was learning that they had been living alongside the most successful intelligence, gathering and military preparation operation in galactic history. Elena, Chen continued, I'm promoting you to Fleet Admiral. The Outer Rim territories need someone who understands both the old ways and the new reality. Elena felt a moment of pride. Fleet Admiral was a rank that had not existed 6 months ago. Created specifically for the new galactic order. She would be responsible for overseeing human expansion into regions of space that had never seen a human before. What are my orders, Supreme Commander? Bring civilization to the barbarians, Chen replied with a cold smile. Show the outer systems what happens when they cooperate with humanity, and what happens when they don't. Elena nodded. The message was clear. Species that accepted human authority would be protected and allowed to prosper under the new order. Species that resisted would serve as cautionary examples for others. After Chen signed off, Elena walked to her office's observation deck to watch the sunset over New Geneva. The city sparkled with lights that had been rebuilt using technology from a dozen different alien civilizations. Earth was becoming the center of a new galactic empire, one that would never again allow humans to be treated as servants. But the view also reminded Elena of the cost of their victory. 2 billion humans had died in the Vorthak attack that started this war. Cities had been destroyed, families shattered, and an entire generation of children had grown up knowing that aliens had tried to exterminate their species. That memory would drive human policy for centuries to come. Admiral, her aide returned with another update. The morning briefing is ready for your review. Elena took the datapad and scanned through the daily intelligence reports. Human forces were now active in over 3,000 star systems. Former alien military bases were being converted into human training facilities. Captured alien technology was being reverse-engineered to create even more advanced human weapons. But the most important developments were political. Species throughout the galaxy were competing to prove their loyalty to humanity. Trade agreements that heavily favored human interests. Technology transfers that gave humans access to centuries of alien research. Cultural exchanges that taught alien children to speak human languages and respect human customs. The galaxy was being slowly and systematically converted into a human-dominated civilization. Elena walked to her desk and activated the holographic display that showed the current state of galactic affairs. What she saw made her smile with deep satisfaction. The map that had once been dominated by alien powers was now colored in human blue, territory that had been gained not just through military conquest, but through the patient work of 3 centuries of human infiltration and intelligence gathering. Computer. Display casualty reports for the full campaign. The statistics that appeared were sobering. 47 billion alien military personnel killed or captured. 1,200 major installations destroyed or converted to human use. 17 species had surrendered unconditionally. 23 others had accepted protectorate status. Human casualties were less than 3 million military personnel killed in action. Elena studied those numbers with professional interest. The casualty ratio demonstrated what happened when a species that had evolved on a death world fought against species that had evolved in peaceful environments. Humans had not won through superior technology or greater numbers. They had won because they were better at warfare than any other known species. They were apex predators who had been pretending to be prey animals for 3 centuries, and when they finally revealed their true nature, the galaxy had no defense against them. Elena's personal communicator chimed again, this time with a message from the surface. Her younger brother Carlos, now serving as a human colonial administrator on the former Vorthak world of Kepler 442c, the same world where Elena had captured her first alien military installation 2 years ago. Elena, you need to see what we found in the Vorthak archives. Carlos's image appeared, showing him standing in what appeared to be a vast underground facility, filled with data storage devices. This is incredible, he continued. The Vorthak have been keeping detailed records of every species they conquered. Biological data, psychological profiles, military capabilities, everything needed to maintain control over subject populations. Elena leaned forward with interest. What does it say about humanity? Carlos grinned and held up a data crystal. That's the best part. According to their files, the Vorthak leadership knew that humans were dangerous. They had psychological profiles that identified us as a species capable of extreme violence and deception. They knew we were only pretending to be harmless. Elena felt her blood run cold. If they knew, why did they attack Earth? Because they thought they could control us through fear, Carlos replied. Their plan was to kill just enough humans to terrorize the rest into complete submission. They believed that a few billion casualties would break human resistance and make us easier to manage. Elena stared at her brother's image as the full implications sank in. The Vorthak had not attacked Earth because they thought humans were weak. They had attacked Earth because they thought humans were dangerous and needed to be broken before they became a threat. Instead, the attack had given humanity permission to stop hiding their true capabilities. Carlos, transmit all those files to Terran Command immediately. This information needs to be analyzed and distributed to all human forces. Elena walked back to the observation deck and looked up at the stars. The galaxy stretched out before her, filled with thousands of species that had spent centuries believing they understood humanity. The Vorthak files proved that at least some of them had known the truth all along. It did not matter now. The galaxy had made its choice when it allowed the attack on Earth to proceed. Every species that had remained silent, every government that had failed to condemn the atrocity, every individual who had thought humanity deserved its fate, had chosen their side in the war that followed. Elena activated her personal communicator and opened a channel to all human forces throughout the galaxy. Attention all Terran Protectorate personnel, she began. This is Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez speaking from Earth. Today marks the 2nd anniversary of the broadcast that ended humanity's age of servitude. I want you to remember what we have accomplished in that time. The channel carried her voice to millions of human military personnel, scattered across thousands of worlds, all of them working to build and maintain humanity's new galactic empire. 2 years ago, we were miners and cargo haulers and maintenance workers. We smiled politely when aliens insulted us. We worked for starvation wages and pretended to be grateful. We allowed ourselves to be treated as useful animals, because we were waiting for the right moment to reveal what we really were. Elena looked up at the stars and thought about all the human children who would grow up in a galaxy where humanity was respected and feared, where no human would ever again have to pretend to be weak or grateful or harmless. That moment came when they attacked our families, when they tried to break us through terror and genocide, when they made the mistake of believing that centuries of patience meant we had forgotten how to be dangerous. Throughout the galaxy, human forces were expanding into new territories, building new bases, and teaching new species what it meant to live under human protection. The Great Deception was over, and humanity was finally free to be exactly what they had always been. Apex predators who had been pretending to be prey. The galaxy wanted servants, Elena continued, and now they have them. But they will serve us as we once served them, and they will remember as we remembered that service is a privilege that can be withdrawn at any time. Elena ended the transmission and returned to her desk. There was work to do. The galaxy was large, and there were still species that needed to be taught their proper place in humanity's new order. But for the first time in 3 centuries, Elena was exactly what she appeared to be, not a mining captain pretending to be harmless. not a civilian worker grateful for alien employment. She was Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Protectorate, and she was very good at her job. The universe was a dangerous place filled with species that would hurt humanity if they thought they could get away with it. But now they knew better. Now they understood that humans were the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, and that the best way to stay safe was to make sure that humanity remained their friend. Elena looked out at the stars and smiled. The galaxy was finally at peace, protected by the very monsters it had created through its own cruelty. And in the depths of space, humanity continued to build, to expand, and to remember. Because the universe was indeed a dangerous place, and someone needed to make sure the real monsters stayed afraid of the dark. The age of human servitude was over. The age of human dominance had begun, and it would last for as long as the stars burned in the void. The massive space station hung in the darkness like a glowing jewel. It was bigger than most moons and sparkled with millions of lights from its many levels. This was the home of the Galactic Council, the most powerful group in the known universe. Today, something important was happening inside its great halls. Admiral Zexathara walked through the long corridors with heavy steps. His thick armor made loud sounds on the metal floor. He was from the Vorthan Empire, a race of warriors who had ruled space battles for over 1,000 years. His people looked like giant insects with hard shells covering their bodies. Their eyes were black and cold, and their mouths had sharp teeth that could bite through steel. The Admiral was not happy. For weeks now, the Council had been getting strange messages from a new race. They called themselves humans, and they came from a small system called Sol. These humans wanted to talk about trade and peace. They wanted to join the galaxy as friends. This made Admiral Zexathara laugh. Humans were nothing. Their ships were tiny and slow. They used old fusion engines that barely worked. The Admiral had seen the reports. Human ships were only a few hundred meters long. His own flagship was 50,000 meters long and could destroy planets. He entered the Great Council chamber. The room was huge, with a dome ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 different alien races sat around a circle. Each race had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. They were the masters of space, and they knew it. The crystalline being sat to his left. They looked like walking diamonds that made beautiful sounds when they talked. Their ships were made of living crystal that could fix itself when damaged. They had been mining asteroids and building star cities since before humans learned to make fire. Across from them sat the Psionic Confederation. These aliens had no bodies. They were pure mind energy that glowed with purple light. They could read thoughts from across star systems and move objects with their minds alone. To them, humans were like deaf and blind animals. The Aquatic Union had sent their representative in a water tank. The fish-like being floated inside, its gills moving slowly. Their people lived in the deep oceans of water worlds and had ships that could dive through space like swimming through water. They thought air-breathing races were weak and stupid. Admiral Zexathara took his seat at the war table. His voice was deep and rough when he spoke. "My fellow council members, we are here to discuss the human problem. These new creatures have been sending us messages for 3 months. They want to trade with us. They want to be our equals." Several aliens made sounds that meant laughter in their languages. The crystalline being rang like a bell. The psionic creature flashed bright purple. Even the fish thing in its tank made bubbling sounds. "Equals?" said the reptilian delegate. His people looked like giant lizards with 4 arms. "We have seen their ships. They are toys compared to our fleets. One of our destroyers could sink their entire space force. Their technology is from the Stone Age," added the Machine Collective representative. This one was a robot made of silver metal with glowing red eyes. They still use chemical rockets to leave their planet. They have no shields, no energy weapons, no faster than light communication. They are cave dwellers who learn to fly. Admiral Zexathara nodded his large head. "Yes, but they keep sending messages. They act like they belong here with us. They do not understand their place." The council chamber fell quiet. Outside the windows, they could see the great war fleets of 12 races. Millions of ships floated in perfect formations around the station. Each ship was a masterpiece of death and destruction. Some could crack moons in half. Others could boil the oceans of entire worlds. The hive mind delegate spoke next. This creature looked like a giant ant with 6 arms and wings. Behind it stood dozens of smaller ants that all shared the same thoughts. The humans have no hive structure. Each one thinks for itself. This makes them weak and confused. They cannot work together like a proper species should. They fight among themselves even now. I have studied their history, said the energy being from the Plasma Empire. This alien was made of living fire that changed colors as it talked. They have had over 200 wars on their home planet. They kill each other for pieces of land smaller than our garbage dumps. They are violent and stupid. Admiral Zexathara stood up. His armor caught the light and gleamed like black metal. Then, we are all agreed. These humans need to learn respect. They need to understand who rules this galaxy. He activated a hologram in the center of the room. It showed the Sol system with its small yellow star and 9 planets. Earth looked tiny and blue, like a marble floating in the dark. I propose we send them a message they will understand. We give them a choice. They can become our servants, our slaves, our pets, or they can be destroyed. Simple and clean. The other aliens made sounds of agreement. The crystalline beings chimed like music. The robot's eyes flashed brighter. The fish creature swam in excited circles. How long do we give them to answer? Asked the Void Walker. This alien was so strange that looking at it hurt the eyes. It seemed to be made of living darkness with stars for eyes. 3 days, said Admiral Zexathara. That is more time than they deserve. If they say no, we gather our fleets and show them what real power looks like. The council voted. It was unanimous. Every race agreed that humans needed to be taught a lesson. They would send the ultimatum immediately. As the meeting ended, Admiral Zexathara felt proud. Soon, another primitive race would bow before the council's might. The humans would join the thousands of other species that served as workers and slaves throughout the galaxy. He had no idea that everything was about to change. The message was sent within the hour. It traveled through space faster than light, carried by quantum transmitters that could reach across the galaxy in seconds. The words were simple and clear. To the human species of Sol system, you will submit to the authority of the Galactic Council. You will surrender your weapons and your independence. You will serve us as we command. You have 72 hours to agree. If you refuse, your species will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. Choose wisely. The council members went back to their quarters, satisfied with their work. They began planning the victory celebration that would follow humanity's surrender. None of them imagined that humans might say no. None of them imagined what would happen if they did. The message from the Galactic Council arrived on Earth during the middle of the night. The quantum receiver buried deep under the Swiss mountains began flashing red warning lights. Computer screens filled with alien symbols that slowly translated into human language. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen was sleeping in her quarters when the emergency alarm woke her up. She had been expecting this day for 5 years, ever since Earth's deep space sensors first detected alien ships watching them from the outer solar system. She got dressed quickly and walked through the underground tunnels to the command center. The United Earth Defense Command was built inside a mountain for good reasons. If aliens decided to attack Earth from space, this place would be one of the last to fall. The walls were made of the strongest materials humans could make. The computers were shielded against every type of weapon they could imagine. Admiral Chen entered the main control room. Dozens of officers from different countries worked at their stations. The room was quiet, except for the soft humming of machines. Everyone knew something big was happening. General Martinez from the Space Marines stood up when she entered. He was a big man with scars on his face from old battles. Next to him stood Admiral Petrov from the Russian Space Fleet. His gray hair and serious eyes showed he had seen many wars. "Admiral," said General Martinez, "the message came in 20 minutes ago. You need to read this." Admiral Chen took the printed paper and read it slowly. Her face did not change as she read the alien words. The Council was giving humanity 3 choices: become slaves, become servants, or die. They had 72 hours to decide. Well, she said quietly, they certainly get to the point. This is an insult, said Admiral Petrov, hitting his fist on the table. They treat us like animals, like we are nothing. What are our options? Asked General Martinez. Our fleets are spread across the solar system. We have maybe 300 ships total. The intelligence reports say they have thousands. Admiral Chen walked to the big window that looked out over the command center. Below them, hundreds of people worked at computer stations. These were Earth's best scientists, engineers, and military officers. They had been preparing for this moment for years. Gentlemen, she said, let me tell you something about humans. We do not kneel to anyone. Not to kings, not to gods, and certainly not to aliens who think they own the galaxy. She turned back to face them. Her eyes were hard and cold. 5 years ago, when we first detected their scout ships, I started a special project. We called it Project Prometheus. We knew this day would come. We knew they would underestimate us. General Martinez looked confused. Admiral, what kind of project? I have clearance for everything we do here. Admiral Chen smiled for the first time since reading the message. No, General, you do not. Only 5 people on Earth know about Prometheus. The President, myself, and 3 scientists. Everyone else thinks we have been building normal space. Ships. She walked to a secure computer terminal and entered a long password. The screen showed files marked with the highest security level. Pictures appeared of something that looked like a ship, but unlike any ship the officers had ever seen. My God, whispered Admiral Petrov. What is that thing? That, said Admiral Chen, is what humans can do when we stop playing by everyone else's rules. While the aliens were watching our old fusion ships and laughing at our simple technology, we were working on something else, something they cannot imagine. The ship in the pictures was sleek and black. It was smaller than Earth's biggest warships, but something about it looked dangerous. The hull seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Strange symbols covered its surface. How is this possible? Asked General Martinez. Where did we get the technology? We did not get it from anywhere, said Admiral Chen. We made it, ourselves. Humans have always been good at one thing, gentlemen. We learn, we adapt, we find ways to survive that no one expects. She closed the files and looked at both men. The aliens think we are primitive because we use fusion engines and metal ships. They think technology means bigger guns and stronger shields. They do not understand that the greatest weapon is knowledge. Admiral Chen walked back to the main communication station. The technician there was waiting for orders. Sir, said the technician, what should we tell them? Admiral Chen thought for a moment. The aliens expected humans to be afraid. They expected begging and pleading. They expected Earth to surrender without a fight. Send them this message, she said. 3 words only. Come and take. The technician typed the message into the quantum transmitter. 3 words in simple English that would travel across space faster than light. Admiral, said General Martinez, they will bring their entire fleet here. Thousands of ships. Even with this new technology, can we really fight them all? Admiral Chen looked at the star charts on the wall. Earth was just a tiny dot in a vast galaxy filled with alien empires. For thousands of years, these aliens had ruled space. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and enslaved entire species. General, she said, they have been the apex predators for so long that they have forgotten what it feels like to be prey. They think strength comes from numbers and big ships. They do not understand what humans learned a long time ago. What is that, Admiral? It is not the size of the dog in the fight, it is the size of the fight in the dog. She turned to address the entire command center. Her voice carried across the room. People of Earth, she announced. The aliens have given us an ultimatum. They want us to surrender. They want us to become their slaves. I have sent them our answer. The room fell silent. Everyone stopped working and listened. In 72 hours, they will come here with their fleets. They will expect to find a frightened species ready to beg for mercy. Instead, they will find something they have never seen before. They will find humans who refuse to kneel. She paused and looked around the room at all the faces watching her. Activate Project Prometheus. Send the recall signal to all our ships. Bring them home. It is time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth. The command center exploded into activity. Officers ran to their stations. Computer screens filled with data. Communication arrays began sending coded messages across the solar system. In space, human ships that had been scattered across dozens of worlds began turning toward home. But they were not the same ships that had left Earth years ago. Each one had been upgraded with technology that did not appear in any official records. Admiral Chen walked to her private office and sealed the door. She opened a secure channel to a location that did not exist on any map. This is Admiral Chen. Authorization Omega 77. Begin final preparations. Our guests will be arriving soon. The voice that answered came from somewhere deep in space, far from Earth. Understood. Admiral, Prometheus is ready. We will be waiting for them. Admiral Chen closed the channel and sat back in her chair. The next 72 hours would change everything. Either humanity would find its place in the galaxy as a free species, or they would die fighting for that freedom. She preferred it that way. Humans had always been at their best when their backs were against the wall. Outside her window, Earth continued to spin in the darkness. It looked peaceful and quiet. The aliens would see a small blue world with primitive technology and weak defenses. They would be wrong about everything. 3 days had passed since humanity sent their answer to the Galactic Council. Space around the Sol system was about to become very crowded. The first alien ships appeared at the edge of human space like falling stars. One by one, thousands of vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The darkness between planets suddenly filled with the lights of an invasion fleet that stretched for millions of kilometers. Admiral Zexathera stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Deathbringer. Through the massive windows, he could see the greatest war fleet ever assembled. Ships from 12 different races had come together for one purpose. They would teach the humans a lesson about respect. The Vorthon Empire had brought 400 of their best warships. Each one was built like a flying fortress covered in thick armor and deadly weapons. The crystalline hegemony sent ships that looked like floating cathedrals made of living diamond. The Psionic Confederation brought vessels that seemed to be made of pure energy and thought. Status report, commanded Admiral Zexathara. His tactical officer, a younger Vorthon with bright green eyes, checked his instruments. Sir, we have 9,847 ships in formation. All weapons are ready. All shields are active. We are prepared for battle. The Admiral nodded with satisfaction. This was more firepower than had ever been gathered in one place. They could destroy entire star systems with this fleet. A few primitive humans would not be a problem. What about their defenses? He asked. Sir, our long-range sensors show very little activity in the Sol system. We detect some small patrol ships near the outer planets, but nothing significant. Earth's orbital platforms are still there, but they appear to be mostly civilian structures. Admiral Zexathara laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. Of course they are hiding. They know they cannot fight us. Perhaps they will surrender without a battle. The fleet began moving toward Earth's solar system. Each ship was a masterpiece of destruction. The smallest destroyer was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. The largest dreadnoughts were mobile cities that could house millions of warriors. As they traveled deeper into human space, the alien commanders talked to each other over secure communication channels. They shared jokes about human cowardice. They made bets about how quickly the humans would surrender. The reptilian delegate, commanding a ship that looked like a giant metal snake, sent a message to the Admiral. Zexathara, this is almost disappointing. I was hoping for at least some resistance. My warriors are eager for battle. Patience, old friend, the Admiral replied. Perhaps the humans are planning something. It would not be the first time a primitive species tried to surprise us. But as the hours passed, human space remained quiet. The alien fleet detected no major military buildup, no massive defensive formations, no desperate calls for help sent to other star systems. It seemed like Earth was simply waiting for the end. The fleet reached the orbit of Jupiter without seeing a single human warship. The gas giant looked peaceful and empty. Its moon showed some mining operations, but nothing that could threaten even the smallest alien vessel. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "we are now entering the inner solar system. Still no signs of major human forces." Admiral Zexithara felt a strange unease in his stomach. Something was wrong. No species, no matter how primitive, would face certain destruction without at least trying to fight. Where were the human ships? Where were their defenses? "Scan everything," he ordered. "Every asteroid, every space station, every piece of debris. I want to know where they are hiding." The alien sensors were the best in the galaxy. They could detect a single fighter craft from light years away. They swept through the solar system like invisible nets, searching for any sign of human military forces. The results were puzzling. There were indeed human ships scattered throughout the system, but they were exactly what the aliens expected. Small vessels with fusion engines and primitive weapons. Nothing that could threaten a council garbage scow, let alone a battle fleet. "Perhaps they really are as helpless as they appear," suggested the tactical officer. Admiral Zexithara was not convinced. His warrior instincts told him something was very wrong. In his long career, he had conquered dozens of worlds. He had fought against species much more advanced than humans. None of them had ever faced certain death with such calm silence. The fleet continued toward Earth. The blue and white planet grew larger in their view screens. It looked beautiful and peaceful, like a jewel hanging in the void. Orbital stations moved slowly around it like tiny moons. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "I am detecting something unusual." "What is it?" "There is an energy signature near Earth's moon. It is very faint, but it does not match our database of human technology." Admiral Zexithara ordered the main screen to focus on the area around Luna. At first, he saw nothing but empty space and the gray surface of Earth's natural satellite. "There," pointed the sensor operator. "Behind the moon. Something is there." The Admiral enhanced the image. Slowly, a shape became visible in the moon's shadow. It was a ship, but unlike any vessel in the alien databases. The hull was completely black, so dark it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship was only about 5 kilometers long, smaller than most alien cruisers. "What is that thing?" whispered the tactical officer. Before anyone could answer, the strange ship began to move. It came out from behind the moon slowly, like a predator emerging from its hiding place. As it moved into the sunlight, the aliens could see its true shape. The vessel was sleek and angular, with curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. There were no visible weapons, no obvious engines, no communication arrays. It looked more like a piece of abstract art than a warship. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Put it on the main screen." A human face appeared on the view screen. It was a woman with short gray hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple military uniform with no fancy decorations. This was Admiral Chen, though the aliens did not know her name. "Galactic Council Fleet," she said in a clear, steady voice. "You are trespassing in human space. This is your final warning. Withdraw immediately, or your presence will be considered an act of war." The alien bridge fell silent. Then Admiral Zexithara began to laugh. The sound spread to other bridges throughout the fleet. Soon, thousands of alien warriors were laughing at the audacity of a single human ship challenging their mighty armada. "Human," said Admiral Zexithara when he could speak again, "look around you. Count our ships. We have 10,000 vessels to your one. You cannot possibly believe you can fight us." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "Admiral, you have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal. This is not a negotiation." The alien laughter grew louder. The reptilian commander sent a message saying this was the funniest thing he had seen in centuries. The crystalline beings made musical sounds of amusement. Even the cold machine collective found the situation amusing. Admiral Zexithara checked his chronometer. He decided to play along with the humans' game. "Very well, human, I will count your 30 seconds, then we will show you what real power looks like." He watched the time pass. 30 seconds. The human ship just floated there in space, looking small and helpless against the backdrop of 10,000 alien warships. "Your time is up," announced Admiral Zexthera. "Surrender now, and we might let some of your species live as slaves." "Admiral," Chen's voice came back over the communication channel. It was still calm, still steady. But now there was something else in it. Something that made the hair on the back of alien necks stand up. "You chose war," she said quietly. "So be it. Prometheus, you are weapons free." The strange black ship suddenly came alive with energy. But this was not the familiar glow of fusion or antimatter. This was something completely different. The ship's hull began to shift and change, revealing weapon ports that had not been visible before. Energy readings spiked beyond anything the alien sensors could properly measure. Warning alarms began sounding on bridges throughout the Council. "Fleet, what is happening?" demanded Admiral Zexthera. His tactical officer stared at his instruments in confusion. "Sir, the energy readings make no sense. According to our sensors, that ship is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. But that is impossible." Admiral Zexthera felt a cold fear creeping into his heart. For the first time in his long military career, he was looking at something he did not understand, something that made his warrior instinct scream warnings. "All ships," he commanded, "prepare to fire. Target that vessel. Maximum firepower." 10,000 alien warships turned their weapons toward the single human ship. The combined firepower could have shattered moons and boiled oceans. Enough destructive force to end civilizations was about to be unleashed on one small vessel. But Admiral Zexthera could not shake the feeling that he had made a terrible mistake. The first minute of the battle would be remembered across the galaxy for 1,000 years. Admiral Zexthera gave the order that sealed his fate. "All ships open fire. Destroy that human vessel." 10,000 alien warships unleashed hell itself. Antimatter torpedoes streaked through space like falling stars. Plasma beams hot enough to melt planets carved lines of fire across the darkness. Particle cannons that could crack asteroids in half focused their fury on the single black ship. The combined attack was beautiful and terrible. It lit up the solar system brighter than the sun. Energy weapons of every color imaginable converged on the Prometheus. The firepower was enough to destroy entire fleets, to burn worlds to ash, to end civilizations. The human ship did not try to dodge. It did not run or hide. It simply waited as destruction came toward it. Then something impossible happened. A barrier appeared around the Prometheus, but it was not like any shield the aliens had ever seen. It did not glow with energy or spark with electricity. Instead, it seemed to bend space itself. The barrier looked like looking through water, making everything behind it wave and ripple. The alien weapons hit the barrier and simply disappeared, not reflected, not absorbed, not blocked. They vanished as if they had never existed at all. Antimatter torpedoes that could level mountains touched the strange field and were gone. Plasma beams that burned at 1,000,000 degrees reached the barrier and ceased to be. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Zexthera. His tactical officer stared at his instruments with wide, frightened eyes. "Sir, our weapons are not getting through. They are not even being stopped. They are just gone." Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication channels, calm as still water. "You chose this path. Now face the consequences. Prometheus, you may begin." The human warship changed. The black hull started to glow with a soft silver light that seemed to come from inside. The metal itself. New weapon ports opened along its sides, revealing technology that made no sense to alien eyes. A single beam of silver light emerged from the front of the Prometheus. It was thin as a pencil and moved faster than light itself. The beam did not travel through space in the normal way. It simply appeared wherever it was aimed, ignoring distance and time. The beam touched Admiral Zexthera's flagship, the mighty Deathbringer. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. The massive dreadnought continued to float in space, its weapons still firing, its crew still alive. Then the Deathbringer simply stopped existing. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no debris field. The ship that had been 50 kilometers long and housed a crew of 100,000 warriors was just gone. Where it had been, there was only empty space and scattered molecules. "What happened to the flagship?" screamed the reptilian commander over the communication network. Where? Is Admiral Zexathara? No one could answer because no one understood what they had just seen. The most powerful warship in the Vorthan fleet had been erased from reality like writing wiped from a board. Panic spread through the alien fleet faster than their communications could carry it. Ship captains who had never known fear in their lives suddenly felt terror creeping into their hearts. This was not battle as they understood it. This was something beyond their comprehension. The Prometheus began to move, but it did not use engines or thrusters. Instead, it seemed to fold space around itself, appearing and disappearing throughout the alien formation like a ghost made of death. Each time it materialized, that terrible silver beam reached out to touch another council ship. Each time another vessel ceased to exist. Battle cruisers that had conquered star systems disappeared without a trace. Carriers that housed thousands of fighters were erased from the universe. Dreadnoughts built to last for centuries were gone in an instant. The alien commanders tried everything they could think of. They ordered their ships to spread out to make themselves harder to target. The Prometheus simply appeared in the middle of their formations and continued its work. They tried to ram the human ship with their fastest vessels. The attacking ships passed right through the Prometheus, as if it was made of shadow and light. The Psionic Confederation attempted to assault the human vessel with their mind powers. Their psychic warriors reached out with thoughts sharp as knives, trying to crush the minds of the human crew. Instead, they encountered something that burned their consciousness, like touching the surface of a star. Screams echoed across the mental networks as entire psionic crews collapsed, their minds shattered by contact with something beyond their understanding. The machine collective tried to hack into the human ship's computer systems. Their most advanced artificial intelligences reached across space with electronic tendrils, seeking to take control of the enemy vessel. They found nothing. The Prometheus did not seem to have computers or networks as they understood them. It was as if the ship operated on principles that made no sense to any known form of technology. In the second minute, 3,000 alien ships had been destroyed. In the third minute, another 4,000 disappeared. The greatest armada in galactic history was being methodically erased by a single vessel that seemed to exist outside the normal laws of physics. Some alien ships tried to flee. They discovered that their faster-than-light drives would not work. The Prometheus had somehow locked down the entire solar system, trapping them with a predator they could not fight or understand. The crystalline hegemony's remaining ships gathered together and tried one final desperate attack. They combined their power into a single focused beam that could cut through the cores of planets. The energy lance struck the human ship directly. The attack passed through the Prometheus without effect, as if the vessel existed in a different dimension entirely. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos and terror that filled the communication channels. Her words were like ice in the veins of every surviving alien. You wanted to see our warship. You wanted a demonstration of our power. This is what humanity has become while you played at being gods among the stars. The Prometheus began to glow brighter, that silver light spreading along its hull like liquid metal. The ship seemed to grow larger without actually changing size, as if it was expanding into dimensions that eyes could not see. We touched the void between realities and learned its secrets. We bent the laws of physics to our will, not through conquest, but through understanding. We became something more than flesh and metal and simple energy. The few remaining alien ships, less than 1,000 now, clustered together in a desperate defensive formation. They poured every weapon they had left into a final attack on the human vessel. Energy enough to crack continents flowed toward the Prometheus. The human ship ignored the attack completely. The alien weapons could not touch something that existed, partially outside normal space and time. You wanted to see our demonstration, Admiral Chen continued, her voice now echoing with strange harmonics that hurt alien ears. Here it is. The Prometheus began to pulse with that silver light, brighter and brighter until it outshone Earth's sun. The light was not painful to look at, but it carried a sense of vast, incomprehensible power. This is your lesson. This is your warning. This is your future if you continue to threaten humanity. The light exploded outward from the human ship, not as fire or energy, but as something that changed the very nature of space around it. The wave of silver radiance expanded in all directions, moving faster than light itself. Every alien ship, touched by the light, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, not torn apart. They were simply edited out of reality as if they had never been built, never been crewed, never been sent to threaten Earth. In 4 minutes, 10,000 alien warships and their crews were gone. The greatest military force in galactic history had been erased by a single human vessel that operated on principles beyond alien understanding. The Prometheus hung alone in the void, its hull returning to that light-absorbing black. The solar system was quiet again except for the gentle movement of planets in their orbits. Admiral Chen's final message went out across the galaxy, carried by means that no alien scientist could explain. The demonstration is complete. Remember this lesson well. Humanity sought peace, you chose war, these were the consequences. The age of alien dominance over the galaxy had ended in exactly 4 minutes. 3 days after the battle, the galaxy began to understand what had happened at Earth. The message arrived on every major world at exactly the same time. It did not come through normal communication channels or quantum transmitters. Instead, it simply appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device across thousands of star systems. No one could explain how this was possible. The message was simple. It contained video footage of the battle from multiple angles, showing the complete destruction of the Council fleet in perfect detail. Along with the images came Admiral Chen's final statement. On the Vorthon homeworld, the Imperial War Council watched the footage in absolute silence. These were warriors who had conquered hundreds of worlds, who had never known defeat. Now they stared at screens showing their greatest fleet being erased from existence in 4 minutes. General Thakmor, the oldest living Vorthon warrior, spoke first. His voice was barely a whisper. "How many ships did we lose?" "All of them, sir," replied his aide. "Every vessel we sent to Earth. 400 of our finest warships. Gone." The general's claws scraped against the metal table. In his 300 years of life, he had seen the rise and fall of empires. He had watched entire species bow before Vorthon might, but he had never seen anything like this. What of Admiral Zexithara? "No trace, sir. No survivors. No debris. It is as if they never existed." On the crystal worlds of the hegemony, the Harmonic Council met in emergency session. These beings of living mineral had existed for millions of years. They had seen the birth and death of stars. But the footage from Earth showed them something that challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. The prime crystal, eldest of their race, resonated with deep, mournful tones. The humans have touched something beyond our understanding. They have found power in the void between realities. "What should we do?" asked a younger crystal being. "We pray they are merciful," came the reply. Across the galaxy, the same conversation was happening on every world. Military leaders who had spent their lives planning conquest now spent their time planning how to avoid humanity's attention. Political councils that had ruled star systems for thousands of years suddenly found themselves powerless. The Psionic Confederation's collective mind was in chaos. The mental screams of their warriors who had tried to attack the Prometheus still echoed through their shared consciousness. Many of their strongest telepaths had been driven insane by contact with whatever intelligence controlled the human ship. The machine collective ran millions of calculations trying to understand the technology they had witnessed. Every simulation failed. Every analysis came back with the same result. Impossible. But the most important meeting was happening on a small moon in neutral space. Representatives from the 12 council races had gathered in secret. They came in unmarked ships, hiding from their own people as much as from humanity. The meeting room was simple and bare. No grand decorations, no symbols of power. Just a circular table where the rulers of the galaxy sat like frightened children. The reptilian emperor spoke first. His forearms trembled as he gestured toward the center of the table, where a hologram showed the Earth system. "We have received reports from our deep space scouts. Human ships are moving throughout their solar system, but they are not the ships we have seen before. They are using the same technology as the vessel that destroyed our fleets." How many? Asked the aquatic. Union's representative, we do not know. Our scouts cannot get close enough to count them. Every time one of our ships approaches the Sol system, it is discouraged. The Voidwalker's representative, a being of living darkness, spoke in a voice like wind through empty space. Discouraged? The human ships appear near our vessels and simply wait. They do not threaten or attack. They just watch. Our crews report feeling overwhelming terror, as if they are being examined by something vast and incomprehensible. The Machine Collective's delegate, a silver robot with glowing red eyes, processed this information. Analysis suggests the humans are not merely technologically superior. They have evolved beyond our understanding of what technology means. Silence fell over the group. These beings had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They had divided up star systems like pieces of food on a plate. They had treated entire species as resources to be harvested. Now they were discussing how to avoid the attention of a single solar system. The crystalline representative rang with nervous harmonics. What do they want from us? According to their message, nothing, replied the reptilian emperor. They claim no territory beyond their own system. They seek no conquest, no empire. But they have made it clear that the old council no longer exists. Then what are we? Asked the hive mind delegate. No one could answer that question. Over the following weeks, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. Without the council's iron rule, old conflicts that had been suppressed for centuries began to emerge. Some species tried to claim territory that had once belonged to stronger races. Others simply hid, afraid that any action might draw humanity's attention. Trade routes that had existed for thousands of years collapsed as merchant ships refused to travel through space that might bring them close to human territory. Entire star systems declared independence from their former masters, knowing that the old powers no longer had the strength to stop them. But the strangest thing was what did not happen. Many alien leaders expected humanity to begin expanding, to start claiming worlds and building an empire. After all, they had proven they possessed the power to conquer the entire galaxy in a matter of days. Instead, Earth remained silent. Human ships continued to patrol their solar system, but they made no aggressive moves. They did not send invasion fleets or demand tribute. They simply existed, like a sleeping giant that no one dared to wake. Some brave alien merchants tried to approach Earth with offers of trade. They found human patrol ships waiting for them at the edge of the system. The encounters were polite but firm. Humans would trade knowledge and technology, but only on their terms. No alien vessel was permitted to approach Earth itself. A few species sent ambassadors with offers of alliance, surrender, or tribute. These messages were acknowledged but not answered. It was as if humanity had moved beyond the need for normal diplomacy. The most disturbing reports came from deep space explorers. Ships that ventured too far from known trade routes reported encountering human vessels in places where no ships should exist. These encounters always followed the same pattern. The human ship would appear without warning, observe the alien vessel for a few moments, then vanish as mysteriously as it had come. It became clear that humanity was watching everything. They had eyes and ears throughout the galaxy, monitoring every major civilization, every military movement, every political decision, but they remained silent observers, never interfering unless someone made the mistake of threatening Earth. 6 months after the battle, a young Vorthon explorer made a discovery that changed everything. On a dead world at the edge of the galaxy, she found ancient ruins covered in strange symbols. The structures were millions of years old, built by a race that had vanished before most current civilizations had even evolved. The symbols told a story of beings who had come from beyond the stars, beings who could bend reality to their will, beings who had shaped the early galaxy and then disappeared, leaving only warnings for those who would follow. The explorer's translation of the final inscription sent shockwaves through every remaining government. The first ones return when the children have grown too proud. They come not as conquerors but as shepherds to guide the flock back to the proper path. Fear not their power, for it is not meant for destruction. Fear only your own arrogance, for that is what draws their attention. The inscription was signed with a symbol that made the explorer's blood run cold. It was the same mark that appeared on the hull of the Prometheus. As this news spread across the galaxy, a terrible understanding began to dawn on the alien races. Humanity had not suddenly developed impossible technology. They had not discovered new scientific principles or built weapons beyond comprehension. They had come home, the beings who had ruled the galaxy in its youth, who had disappeared into the void between stars, who had been watching and waiting for the right moment to return. The humans were not newcomers to the galactic community. They were its creators. And now, after millions of years of exile in the dark between realities, they had returned to find their creation ruled by children who had forgotten their place in the cosmic order. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of conquest and empire was over. The age of careful, respectful coexistence had begun. And somewhere in the Sol system, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the stars and smiling quietly. Humanity had finally come home.